I am Dr. Joe Esposito, and a good show today. We're going to talk about long COVID. Please don't ask me any questions about vaccines. I won't answer them. I don't know. I'm not a vaccine expert. But we're going to talk about what the research is showing on long COVID and what it is, who gets it, surprisingly, and what the best research at this point is for people that have it. So, if you're new to the show, I talk for 24 minutes. You listen for 24 minutes. You can type in any questions you'd like, except about vaccines, in your search bar. At the break of 24 minutes, I'll answer those questions. Then we'll do another 24-minute segment, then I'll answer more questions. So that's how it works. It's pretty simple. Not so bad, okay? So this is the roadmap to life for folks with long COVID. That's what we're talking about, okay? So if you guys are ready, I am ready. I'll use my fancy pen here. All right, ready? Wait. Okay, ready to start? Hey folks, Dr. Joe Esposito here. We're going to talk about long COVID today. Now, I've been in practice a long time, certainly through COVID, and a lot of people have sent me questions, and a lot of patients have come in, and a lot of people I know have sent me messages from all over the country, all over the world. They have long COVID. They think they have long COVID. Let's talk about what it is, what the research is showing, and then hopefully what you can do about it. Now, I'm not going to talk about vaccines. Please don't ask me about vaccines. This is strictly about what the research is showing for people that have long COVID. Now, it can be debilitating. It's estimated that about 10% of the people that have COVID now have long COVID, and there's more than 200 symptoms identified with long COVID. So it's not something we can say, hey, there it is. It's really easy to figure out. And it usually impacts multiple organ systems. So it could be the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, the colon, the digestive system. The most astounding fact about this, as I did the research, is that those who suffered a harsh, acute attack from COVID usually don't get the long COVID. It's usually the people that had mild COVID symptoms. They're the ones that seem to get long COVID more often. Now, it's an important fact to keep in mind because at least 65 million people worldwide are estimated to have this long COVID syndrome. And it's tough because we've had a lot of people come in with it, and I'll talk about the symptoms in just a second, what it is. Cases are increasing daily. More and more people are coming up having it, and more people are coming up with it because they never realized it. I'm tired. I'm burned out. In fact, if you do a search on what millennials are looking for on the internet, one of the things millennials are looking for is burnout, fatigue. What do I do for it? Well, it may be that some or a lot of that group might have something called long COVID. And there's some supportive protocols we can do, and not everybody has the same impact. I might have lung issues. You might have fatigue issues. Somebody else might have digestive issues. So it's really hard to come up with, and I'll talk about this later. There is no test for it. It's based strictly on symptoms. So the damage of long COVID has been determined to be attributed to immune-mediated response of chronic inflammation. So what does that mean? Your body has inflammatory reaction. The immune system attacks it, and the immune system continues to keep attacking this inflammatory area. So the initial attack might be brutal on the immune system. And if anybody had COVID, a severe case of it, you know what it's like. It'll kick your fanny. And it went away for a while, and I'm starting to see an uptick now. More and more people are testing positive again for it. And the biggest problem is the organ damage and inflammation that the viruses inflict. And in some cases, continual presence of the virus is an issue. In other cases, it attacked the heart. We'll cover the heart a little later. The viruses attacked the heart. Inflammatory reaction occurred. Cells were weakened. Mitochondria were attacked. I'll talk about that in a little bit too. And so now the body keeps sending an immune response to this area because the area is so damaged. So it's this ongoing not autoimmune response, it's an immune response that's happening, causes the inflammation. And when the mitochondria are attacked, which again we'll talk about in a second, the mitochondria generate energy in the body. And this is what we think happened. Not sure yet. This is some hypotheses are. The virus got in and it attacked the mitochondria. It made the mitochondria weak. So the mitochondria is weak, so it can't utilize vitamin D properly. Vitamin D builds up the immune system. So the virus was smart enough to weaken the area that would kind of take out the defenses of the body. And so when the mitochondria attack, they can't generate electricity. The cells don't utilize vitamin D properly. And now the virus was able to set up shop. Now, it's a hypothesis. We're very early on in the research here. But I'm just letting you know what's happening. And we'll talk about what to do about it, too. So a lot of research, regardless of what symptoms you have, there's a certain protocol that seems to work the best. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So early research shows increasing risk of long COVID after a second or third infection, especially. And a lot of people had it several times. You had COVID one time. It's pretty bad. It got worse. Now, there's no protection in double vaccinated and triple vaccinated people from this. That's what the research is showing. So again, I'm not here to talk about vaccines, but this is what the research is showing. COVID patients do not necessarily have to have underlying risk factors that plagued so many people in the beginning. If you remember, when COVID first came out, and I'm sure you do, people that were at high risk seemed to have the worst cases of it. People that had heart disease, diabetes, obesity, the elderly, people with low vitamin D levels. These are the people that seem to be affected the most with COVID. And early on, if you remember, we talked about laying people face down and putting a tube down their throat to helping them breathe. And then we found out, maybe that wasn't the best approach because it was debilitating and many people died from that. So this is an ongoing process. We're all learning about this. And I promise you 5-10 years from now, we'll have new research. Probably next year we'll have new research. And this is what we have as of today. Now, the virulent strains came around early on. People caught it. The virus is mutated. Our immune system's mutated. It's been this ongoing battle. What happens with viruses is viruses really don't want to kill their host. If they kill the host, they die too. So the viruses change, and then we come up with medication or bacteria. They change. Okay, let's say we have a bacterial infection, and we have an antibiotic that works really well. Well, the bacteria will then change to become resistant to and this bacteria would be antibiotics, and they mutate. And that's exactly what's happening with this, as what we expected. This is how viruses work. They mutate to sometimes get weaker so that they don't kill off the host. They realize, again, this is again, talking as if they're humans. The viruses realize I'm killing off too many hosts. I've got to do something about this. So many times the virus can mutate. Now, I'm not a virologist. I'm not that's not my specialty, but this is what the research is showing. So the important thing is that protocols for long COVID must address inflammation and organ damage rather than the abrupt immune attack. The abrupt immune attack happened, caused the damage, and now it's continuing this long COVID. So what do we do when the body becomes inflamed? What do we do when the organs become weak? Now, the liver, for example, the liver can regenerate itself. The liver is one of the most amazing organs in the body. Well, they're all amazing because it can heal. The heart can't. Kidneys can't. Spleen can't. But the liver, if I was to remove 70% of your liver, you can survive and it can grow back. So the liver is an amazing organ, and the liver is the detoxification organ. So a lot of the damage that was done from anything you do, not just COVID, but from eating a bad diet, alcohol, meat, sugar, dairy, coffee, soda, artificial sweetener, breads, cookies, cakes, donuts, pastas, the traditional American diet, or what we call the standard American diet, damages the liver every day. When I was young, when I went to school actually, I guess I was young then, we knew that if you had fatty liver, it was caused by alcohol. That was it. Now we're finding fatty liver in 5-year-olds. Not all, but some. And a lot of it has to do with sugar, high fructose corn syrup, additives, attacking the liver. Again, the nice part is when you take the stress off the liver has amazing regenerative capabilities. So just consider that. So another important fact is that since a major focus is on respiratory symptoms when COVID hit, many think that the research should be on the lungs. But it turns out that, we had respiratory issues, but it's affecting a lot of other organs. We're going to talk about the heart in just a second. Heart and cardiovascular system. To add to that, the tests being used lack specificity for long COVID. Let me make sure you understand that statement. The tests that we're using now don't test for long COVID. There is no test for long COVID. We can test for COVID. We can see if you're positive or negative, and that was one of the problems. You come back with a negative test, and you say, I'm fine. My COVID's over. I had COVID, I got tested, but we can't test for the long COVID. Now, we're trying to develop better tests to pinpoint long COVID sufferers sooner and increase the probability of relief for a lot of these people. Because I can't tell you how many patients, how many messages come to my website, drjoe.com. I'm exhausted. I still can't breathe. I have this chronic cough. My digestive system has just been a wreck since I had COVID. What do I do about it? Well, now we start to look at the list of symptoms, 200 of them, and we say you have this, and this, and it happened right after COVID. We can guess it's probably a long COVID case. But don't worry, I'm going to tell you what to do about it, which is good. So I want to talk about the heart for a second, and it's the symptoms and what's involved with people that have it. Now, if I have time, and I may not, that's why I want to cover it now. We're finding now that people that get heart transplants from donors that have had COVID have a substantially lower survival rate than people that they get heart transplants from people who didn't have COVID. Now, studies are early on, but we're seeing a correlation here. So the question comes up in the health world, what do we do about it? And that's a rhetorical question because I don't have an answer for it. What do we do about it? I need a heart. Bob died. Bob's going to give me his heart. Bob had COVID. What do I do? Well, we don't know yet. But I'm just letting you know that there's still stuff out there we don't know. So when it comes to the heart, multiple suspected causes of long COVID, disturbing what's called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. The way that works is your hypothalamus is in your brain. Your pituitary gland is up there, and then it goes into the adrenals as well. So one feeds into the other, which feeds into the other, which has a negative feedback loop, and it's how we function. The adrenal glands are so important. They produce anti-inflammatories. They produce sex hormones. They produce adrenaline for energy. Most of us have burned out our adrenal glands. That's a phrase. You don't really physically burn them out. But you've just worn them out, and they just can't keep pace. So you might have fatigue. You might have bags under your eyes. You might have low sex hormones, low sex drive, chronic inflammation throughout the body because the adrenal glands just can't keep pace. So we're thinking now that, again, all this is a hypothesis, that the COVID has affected the pituitary adrenal gland and hypothalamus axis, it's called, and that can be an issue. The mitochondrial damage is the one that I seem to be leaning toward. Again, this is my opinion at this point. In the case of circulatory system, microvascular blood clotting and dysfunction of the cells in the brain stem that trigger the messages that go to the blood vessels seem to have been damaged. And what's happening is we're finding viral proteins or RNA in the cardiovascular system, the gut, the nervous system, reproductive system, the brain, the muscles, the eyes, the lymph, the appendix, the breast tissue, the liver, the lung, the plasma, the stool, the urine. So we're finding remnants of this virus in these parts of the body. And it's a big issue because what do we do to get out of it? And again, I'll tell you what's happening, what the most recent research is, and it's very positive. So that's good news. There are certain supplements that seem to help. There's certainly a dietary protocol that seems to work to keep you from preventing you from getting infections, including this, and what to do with it after you get it. So there's good news coming up. It's a little tease. In the business, we call that a tease. I'm going to keep you hanging on. So most long COVID cases are non-hospitalized patients with mild acute illness. That's really important that you understand that because you think, well, it couldn't have been COVID. I just had a mild case. You might even know you had it. I don't know how many people had it were never tested, especially early on. Everybody thought they had a bad cold. I remember that happening. I guess it was a bad cold. Maybe it wasn't. And then you could test for antibodies because your body would respond to it. But again, all of that's great, but if you don't have a plan to do anything about it, what good is it? So this one article I was reviewed, it said long COVID, you could search it if you wanted to. It's in PubMed. And other organs attacks, article reports cardiovascular events, specifically something called POTS. Now, years ago, we hardly ever saw a case of POTS, P-O-T-S, and now we see it all the time. Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. What that means is you stand up, your blood pressure drops, you get dizzy, and your heart starts racing. Anybody have that? There's a word for it called POTS. Now, that's the adrenal gland again. The adrenal gland probably isn't kicking enough adrenaline to open up the blood vessels to increase the circulation up to the brain so that you don't get dizzy. And then the heart has to beat faster, trying to pump the blood up to the brain to keep you alive. And so when patients have POTS, and I remember when COVID first came out, patients came in and said, I was diagnosed with POTS. And I was like, God, I haven't heard that term since college, like on the board somewhere. I had to know that test. Now we got to look at the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands produce that energy to allow the blood pressure to go up. So if you have POTS, one thing we want to look at is blood flow abnormalities, metabolic changes. And we find that when we do certain things, certain supplements, we find that there's an increase in the body's ability to stand up and not be dizzy. So there's a lot of good news actually with this, although many of you had these symptoms and don't know it. Now, I find, this is my personal experience with this, and I don't have any research to back what I'm saying, but a lot of people with long COVID, when they come see us for chiropractic care, we adjust the spine, open up the nerve and blood supply, allow that mobility to come back. We work on their digestive system, and they're able to start absorbing nutrients because, again, this long COVID can affect the digestive system. And we've seen many, many people benefit, plus supplements as well. Now, this is my anecdotal statement. I have no research to back that except what I've seen in my practice and I've been doing this for a long time now. So if you have a health issue, and not just this, if you have neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, numbness, tingling, headaches, if you've been in a car accident, sports injuries, folks, chiropractic care is the most effective, least expensive treatment for back pain. So if you have pain, come see us. In the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. I'd love to be your doctor. My team of doctors love to be your doctor. And we'd love to have the opportunity to work on getting the nervous system balanced. We're going to talk about that next. Talk about the digestive system. Talk about diet. Talk about supplementation, not just for this, but for overall health. So if you'd like to make an appointment, go to my website, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. And we can book you probably the same week. We always leave new patient appointments open at all our offices, 4 offices, to try to get patients in right away. So if you're serious about wanting to get well, normally the first visit is $940. I've reduced that for my listeners to $299. That's an exam, x-rays, consultation, first treatment on the follow-up visit going over the x-rays, and a complete nutrition evaluation. I don't know anybody that's doing all that anywhere at any price. The x-rays alone are going to cost you more than that anywhere else. So if you're serious about wanting to get well and stay well, drjoe.com, we'd love to be your doctors. And if you're ever in a car accident, if the car is damaged, you're damaged. I've never seen it any other way. So if you're in a car accident, you may get calls from scam lawyers, from scam doctors. No one is ever going to call you and say, make an appointment. That's a scam. They got your information off a police report, off the internet. It's illegal, and it's a scam. And I've never known anyone going to any of these scam doctors and lawyers and getting the services that they deserve. So drjoe.com, go with your people who you trust. So what we're talking about today is long COVID. This is a lot of research done by Lynn Tuhey. She's a PhD. And so we're talking about what the research is finding as of now. Again, this is probably going to change in a few years. Now, most COVID vulnerable organ systems, it affects what's called the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system controls your heart, your lungs, your liver, your spleen. I think of it as the automatic nervous system because you don't think about your spleen producing antibodies. You don't think about your kidneys making urine. So the autonomic nervous system is where the effects seem to be. And it's called dysautonomia, if you want to know the fancy word. But these are the nerves that control the organs, generally speaking. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the mitochondria because I mentioned that earlier, and you're going to learn a new word today, mitochondria. And you're going to find out that it is so important for your health. So mitochondria is the energy-producing part of the cell. If you look in a cell, it's got a little wall around it, and it's got a bunch of stuff going on in there. And one of the little organelles, it's called, little piece of this cell is called a mitochondria. And they seem to be hit hard with COVID infections. In addition to resulting in chronic fatigue syndrome, there is insufficient amount of energy to the heart and the cardiovascular system. So when a mitochondria gets attacked, it can't produce enough electricity to make everything work the best it can. So you can have impaired oxygen extraction, may explain why exercise, and this is an important statement, exercise, which is normally thought as a standard treatment for people with fatigue, makes the problem worse. So if you're wiped out, you try exercising, it wipes you out really, really bad, It could be that the mitochondria just can't produce enough electricity. When you exercise, your energy requirements skyrocket. And so you need more energy, and the body just can't produce it. Mitochondria can't put out the electricity, and you really crash hard. So there's analysis of U.S. Department of Veterans. They did 150,000 individuals that had COVID. And what they found was an increase in a variety of cardiovascular diseases. And once again, we think it's because the virus attacks the mitochondria. Mitochondria can't produce electricity. Electricity makes the heart beat, lungs breathe, everything else work, and that becomes an issue. Heart failure, dysrhythmia, which is irregular heart beating, stroke. And now it's independent of the severity of the initial COVID-19 presentation. Got to remember, doesn't matter if it was bad or good. In this case, with the heart, people getting the same reactions. They did cardiac MRIs. They revealed cardiac impairment, 78% of 100 individuals with prior COVID-19 episode. They investigated on an average 71 days after the infection. 58% of the participants with long COVID confirming that the cardiac abnormalities were widespread. So it's a big issue, and it's affecting the heart. And this is one of the reasons why it's hypothesized that you're seeing young athletes drop dead out on the field, because the myositis, the inflammation of the heart muscle, occurs with this, and the heart just can't keep the demand. And they're out really stressing their body. Mitochondria can't put out enough electricity, and the heart just stops. And so this is what it seems to be. So we've got to start taking care of our mitochondria. See how we go? See where we're going with this? We're getting back to the cause of what we think is happening. You got to take care of your gut. Let's talk about the gut. Microbiome, that's the bacteria in your colon. A composition significantly altered in COVID patients. So we could look at the bacteria in your colon, we're going to find it's been altered, and not for the better, it's actually for the worse. Dramatically affects the sympathetic nervous system. That's the part of the nervous system that speeds you up. Right now, I'm running in sympathetic mode. I'm researching, I'm thinking, I'm talking, I'm watching the clock, I'm making sure everything works right. That's sympathetic. Parasympathetic, when you calm down, sex, going to the bathroom, sleep, rest, meditation, listening to calming music. That's parasympathetic functions. Sympathetic speeds you up. And so it seems to be affecting the sympathetic nervous system, and there's a direct correlation between the gut and the brain, and it dramatically changes the way that works. And it seems to be that the gut is a huge target for people with COVID. Now, if you had COVID, you might have known that you lost your hunger. You maybe had diarrhea. You had cramping. These were all symptoms of the virus attacking the gut. Remember we said it attacks multiple systems in the body. We talked about the heart, the brain it can affect. It can affect the lungs, which of course we all knew about, but now it turns out it's affecting a lot of other parts of the body as well. And when it's altered, fungus can grow in the colon. And when the fungus starts to grow, that causes the immune system to go crazy, and that can increase inflammation in the body. And as inflammation is increased, that causes a lot of these long-term problems. So the research, again, is ongoing, but long COVID subjects with dysbiosis, that's abnormal bacteria in their colon, we found that they had much lower levels of good bacteria. So the virus seems to somehow wipe out the good bacteria in the colon. So with that, they've done this study. They've transferred gut bacteria from patients with long COVID. They did it in mice, actually. I'm sorry, not in patients. They did it with mice, and they transferred it into mice colons. And the result was loss of cognitive function and impaired lung defenses in the mice. So we know it's working in mice if we take the bad stuff and put it in their colon, and apparently it's working in humans too. This emphasized the fact that probiotics, good bacteria, are so important. It's so helpful when it comes to initial attacks and with long COVID as well. And that's supporting the research that shows probiotics can be part of the protocol. Now, I got to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about other supplements that seem to be helping, and most importantly, the lifestyle that's helping the most. So, folks, I'm Dr. Joe Esposito. If you want to make an appointment to come see us, not just for this, but neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, digestive issues, headaches, go to my website, drjoe.com. Again, chiropractic care, most effective, least expensive treatment for back pain. Supplement, nutrition concerns, brain function, drjoe.com. Follow me on social media at Dr. Joe Esposito. We post health tips every single day, so you don't want to miss that. And if you're a podcast junkie, go to Dr. Joe for the health of it in your podcast service. Dr. Joe for the health of it. Folks, I'm Dr. Joe Esposito. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. There is so much to cover on this topic. There's no way I'm going to get it done in another 24 minutes.
And everybody's listening very intently because there's not too many questions yet.
That's okay.
But does having COVID make you more susceptible to other illnesses?
It does. It does put a stress on the immune system, so we think the answer is yes. And again, a lot of this is we think. So I'm acting accordingly with the knowledge that I have. What else?
What are the healthiest fluids to drink when you're sick? Basically, sports drinks or anything similar to that.
Yeah, not sports drinks because many times they have dyes in, they have artificial sweeteners. Water is going to be your best bet. I personally like tea. I'm drinking Slippery Elm tea right now, as a matter of fact. But tea is going to be great. Warm fluids are great because you got to remember when you have a viral infection, let's say you have a fever, that's how we know it's viral or bacterial. If you have a fever, it's a viral infection. What's the body doing? It's raising the body temperature to naturally kill off the viruses. So what you can do is drink warm fluids, but you can also take a warm bath, take a steam shower, create an artificial fever is what I'm saying. It's not going to be the end-all, be-all, cure-all, but it's something you can do as a protocol. Water is important, and please, folks, please do filtered water because the fluoride, the chloride that's in the water, the leftover drugs that are there, tap water, yeah, it's great. It's better than what a lot of countries have, but we have the ability, if we can, to get a filtered water. If you send me an email through the website, drjoe.com, I'll send you a link to the company I use. They're good, but even if you just use a Brita filter on top of your countertop, any filtered water is better than tap water. So best thing to drink is filtered water, and then how you drink it, you want to have a tea, you want to have warm water, that's fine too. What else you got?
That is all for now.
Great. Okay, guys.
Hold on. Actually, any information about COVID rashes?
Yes, that's one of the 200 symptoms. And again, what we have to do, I'm going to talk about now what to do about that. Supplements that seem to work for across the board, not necessarily for rashes, across the board for COVID, long COVID, and the lifestyle that seems to work the best too. Okay? Okay. It's a little complex. I could probably skip that part. Let me see here. Okay, let's go right into the supplement portion then. Got so much to cover. Ready? Okay, here we go, part 2. Hey folks, Dr. Joe Esposito here. If you're just joining us, welcome. If you stayed with me, welcome. Welcome back. What we're talking about today, really hot topic, long COVID. Now, we didn't know what this was a while ago. People that had COVID would get wiped out. If you had it, you know what it's like. It was very debilitating. But we're finding now the people that had the milder cases, not the ones that were hospitalized, not the ones that were totally debilitating, the bad cases, the mild cases are more likely to have something called long COVID, which there's over 200 different symptoms related to it. I'm going to cover some of that today. I'm not going to list all 200. And patients started coming to me, 6 months, a year after this whole thing started, and they're coming in with these weird symptoms. And the big one was fatigue. Doc, I'm just so tired. I'm wiped out. And so we thought maybe it was burnout. The younger generation, they seem to burn out a lot. That's one of their big concerns they search the internet for. Fatigue, burnout, what can I do? I can take energy drinks. And it turned out these things weren't working. And now we're finding out that the COVID virus was attacking something called the mitochondria. That's the part of the cell that generates electricity. So it's attacking the mitochondria, so the mitochondria couldn't generate electricity, so the body got weaker, so the virus could set up shop and live there. That's the way we think it's happening. And so it's an issue. It's still an issue. And now, tests are coming back. More and more people are coming down with COVID again. And we have to consider this long COVID issue because it can be debilitating. I mean, to the point where you can't even function. And I've had many patients over the recent times come in and say, I can't move. I'm exhausted. I work for a half hour, 45 minutes. I'm wiped out. So I know what's happening. The question was, what do we do about it? And so the good news is research came out recently. Some supplements have shown promise in supporting long COVID, including something called coenzyme Q10 and D-ribose. So the review of authors that they did also noted that pycnogenol is something that works real well too. Grapeseed extract is the same phytoanthocyanidine, proanthocyanidines as pycnogenol, but it's a lot cheaper. So grapeseed extract is one of the things you might want to consider. CoQ10, let me cover CoQ10. CoQ10 is produced by the liver, and it goes out into the cells, and it's fuel for the cells. The cells need CoQ10 to generate electricity. So what happens is our CoQ10 levels can drop. One of the big concerns I saw, again, anecdotal evidence is what I'm speaking here. I don't have any double-blind studies for this, is people that were on statin drugs really got their fanny wet kicked. Because statin drugs shut down or slow down an enzyme in your liver that produces cholesterol. Well, the same enzyme that produces cholesterol produces something called coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10. And so that's why people, aside from this topic, when people take statin drugs, many times they're tired. They're wiped out. Well, we know that people on statin drugs should probably take CoQ10 as a supplement. Well, now we're finding that CoQ10 as a supplement for people that have this long-term fatigue seems to show promise. No promises, no guarantees. It seems to show promise. What I saw, this is just me, that patients that were taking statin drugs were hurt even more because the CoQ10 levels were even lower. But CoQ10 is found to support heart function, certainly in children with cardiac problems, but also in adults. So CoQ10 goes to the heart, all the cells, and generates electricity. So CoQ10 supplements might be something that can be considered as part of this protocol. D-ribose supports diastolic function. That's the brain when the brain relaxes. It's energy dependent. And heart integrity, and including the heart's ability to do its job and pump blood and circulate through the body. So D-ribose, or it's called ribose also, appears to provide a solution for a problem of replenishing depressed ATP. ATP, got a lot of cellular biology here. ATP is the electricity, simply put, of the fuel that's produced in your body. Okay, so the mitochondria is where it's produced. ATP is what is produced. And it seems to help too. Now, as a 2023 article, it was reviewed by someone named Davis and other researchers, focused on the fact that long COVID deserves special attention because of the inflammation and the organ damage that occurs with it. And not a lot of people have been researching this long COVID stuff. But I get questions about it almost every day, and that's why we're talking about it today, because it's a hot topic right now. Another thing that we find that can bring down the inflammation is something called omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA. Those are two of the omega-3 fatty acids. And that should be considered because of the overwhelming scientific evidence that shows it supports inflammation. Now, in a study, they use fish oil. Now, I'm not a fan of fish oil. Fish oil many times goes rancid. Fish oil runs a risk of mercury toxicity. So what I take is algae oil. Now, again, this study was done on fish oil, but it's essentially the omega-3 fatty acids, the same thing. They're safe. They're well accepted. And it's so much scientific evidence around it, relatively inexpensive. And it might have favorable effects on immunity, inflammation, oxidative stress, psychoneuroimmunity. So many times when there's an emotional issue, anxiety, depression, bipolar, ADD, many times there's an inflammatory reaction going on in the brain. And so we find that if we can bring the inflammation down, there are a lot of scientific studies out there now that omega-3 fatty acids should be part of all brain issues. Well, I shouldn't say all, most. You never notice an exception somewhere along the way. Because the research is pretty clear and it helps build the immune system as well. So personally, I take Dr. Joe's omega-3s. Once again, they did this study with fish oil. I take Dr. Joe's plant-based or vegan omega-3s. The bottle says take 1 a day. I take 2 a day. I take a gram of omega-3s every day. Regardless of long COVID, it's just good for the brain. And it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. So I take it every day, and that's part of the supplement protocol I take. Now, I take Dr. Joe's Super Greens, Dr. Joe's Essential Source, which are the two supplements I think everybody should take. I am not saying any way, shape, or form that this is treating COVID or long COVID. This is what I do to keep my body healthy. Dr. Joe's Super Greens, Dr. Joe's Essential Source, they're two powders. They taste great. I mix them together first thing in the morning. And I start my day with Super Greens, an essential source. Now, if I have a busy day, if I have to do radio shows, TV shows, if I have to give a lecture, I'm going to take a second dose later on in the day. I don't take it every day, a second dose, but periodically I'll take a second dose just to keep my body at its prime function. The omega-3 fatty acid is really important. We have a Dr. Joe's probiotic because research has shown probiotics seem to help. There's a bunch of different types of probiotics. This is the one that is generally what most people need. So I take probiotics every day. Super Green, essential source, also has probiotics in it as well. Probiotics are good bacteria. The good bacteria go into your colon and build up your immune system. 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut, is in your digestive system. So if you have a bad digestive system, chances are you're going to have a weak immune system too. So that's why I take them. I take vitamin D every day. I think you should too. I take 5 drops of Dr. Joe's vitamin D because vitamin D is shown to do a lot of different things, including help build the immune system. Well, I want a strong immune system. I take 5 drops a day. I'm about 170, 180 pounds, so that's what I take every day. Now, if you take vitamin D3, you always want to make sure you have vitamin K2 with it. I know I've covered this many times in the past. One of the things vitamin D3 does is helps you absorb calcium. K2 helps take the calcium out of the blood and drive it into the bones. So if you're taking D3 without K2, you may have a buildup of calcium in your blood system, and it may not get to the bones, and too much calcium buildup in the blood can lead to heart conditions. Now, we just talked about the weakened mitochondria and the ATP affecting the heart, and now you can give it a double whammy. So yes, take vitamin D3, make sure there's vitamin K2 with it. Okay? And all the supplements we talked about are on the website, drjoe.com. So we don't have a D-ribose on the website, but if you shoot me an email, I'll send you a link to a company that I'm comfortable with, and the same thing with CoQ10. Okay, if you send me an email, ask for that, I'll send it to you specifically. So I promised you earlier, what do we do? What's the best thing to do for COVID and long COVID? What's the best diet? Healthy plant-based diets appear to reduce the risk of severe COVID-19 and from getting infected in the first place, and also the other comorbidities, the other things that go along with it, the weak heart, the weak colon. The role of nutrition for preventing and beating COVID-19. Nutrition-related myths under protection and treatment have widely been prevalent with the pandemic. Now, a lot of them are myths, but there's a lot of truth to eating more of a plant-based diet. It can help prevent infection, and certainly dietary steps can help minimize your risk of getting any disease. Those with healthier diets in general seem to suffer less severe cases, and this appears to be indirect benefit from lower rates of obesity and other pre-existing medical conditions. Again, we talked about when COVID came out, the pre-existing conditions, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, cancer. These people were really super high risk. Well, a plant-based diet helps lower the risk across the board for health conditions. So it's a direct and an indirect correlation. Indirect is, wow, I'm not as overweight, so I'm less likely to be sick. I don't have heart disease. I'm less likely to get severe cases of it. But is there any diet with direct effects on the course of the disease, the susceptibility to infection, even in the first place? How do I avoid this stuff? Well, plant-based diets shown to decrease the risk of suffering from other respiratory infections. In fact, plant-based seminaries, which were around back in 1918, when the Spanish flu hit, a lot of correlation to that, those people that were in the plant-based seminaries did much better and a much lower death rate. So we have some history behind it too. Now, vegetables, green leafy vegetables, beets, watermelon, these contain nitrates and citrulline, which can convert into something called nitric oxide. Now, if you've listened to me talk before, I love nitric oxide. It's my second favorite supplement in the world. Super Green is an essential source, tied for first. Nitric oxide helps open up your blood vessels and increase circulation to the body, the brain, the colon, the spleen, the heart. And so if you're eating a plant-based diet, you're getting a lot of nitrates, good nitrates, which convert into nitric oxide. Watermelon has citrulline, which converts into nitric oxide, and that seems to help tremendously. There's also something called polyphenol phytonutrients in plants that have direct inhibition on viruses. They keep your immune system strong. So fiber-containing foods facilitate a good relationship with the bacteria in your colon, and that helps build your immune system as well. So if I had to pick a diet, a style, a lifestyle that's going to give me the best bang for my buck when it comes to immunity, it's a plant-based diet. Now, if you don't know what to eat, everybody says this, I don't know what to eat, Dr. Joe. Go to my website, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. Type in the search bar, what can I eat? Or so what can I eat? And you're going to listen to a lecture I gave, about 40, 50 minutes. And I talk about breakfast, lunches, dinners, snacks, packing, unpacking your pantry, going out, raising kids, going out to a party, going on a date. I covered all there very clearly because I give you that breakdown of what the research is showing when it comes to overall the best diet. There are some diets that might be different if you have seizures. I know that's how the ketogenic diet came out. It might help people with seizures. What they don't talk about is the atlas, the top bone in the neck, can come out of place, and that can put pressure on your brainstem, and that can contribute to the seizures as well. Had a patient last week, and the reason I'm off on a tangent with that, young guy, looked like a young Paul McCartney, handsome fella, and his head was all cocked sideways. And he has seizures. And he's on multiple medications. He's got a vagus stimulator, a vagus nerve stimulator implanted in his body. Nobody ever mentioned that his head was on crooked. And I pointed out to his mother and his father, and I showed them the research on seizures and epilepsy and chiropractic. And they were taken back. They were shocked. How come no one's ever told me this before? We've been to the best doctors in the world for seizures. And all they could do is implant a vagal nerve stimulator. Well, I don't know if we're going to fix them or not. I have no idea. But I can tell you, I've seen lots of people with seizures, even animals with seizures. And you put that atlas, that top bone, back in place, take the stress off the brainstem, and they do extremely well. And so we can put them on a ketogenic diet, which is the only reason anyone should ever be on a ketogenic diet, in my opinion, if they have seizures. But if we can fix the cause of the seizures, that's the approach I want to take. I'm not saying I have a cure for seizures. I'm saying that I've seen many patients with the atlas out of place. When you put the atlas back in place, the seizures get better. And there's a lot of research. I think University of Chicago did research on that as well. So there's plenty of research on that. That was blood pressure. I'm sorry. University of Chicago was blood pressure. So there's plenty of research on these things out there, but it's not mainstream. But that's why I try to make it mainstream. So fiber in plant foods is the single most anti-inflammatory food component. We need to eat more fiber. Saturated fat, kind found in meat, dairy, and junk, is pro-inflammatory. And so we need to bring down that inflammation. So again, go to my website, drjoe.com. And we do find there are a lot of studies out there on chiropractic and immunity. Now, I haven't seen any studies on chiropractic and long COVID, which is what we're talking about today. But generally speaking, we want to keep the immune system strong. So if you have neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, numbness, tingling, headaches, blurred vision, muscle weakness, sciatica, you probably have, you have pinched nerves, obviously. Something is pinching the nerve. And chiropractic care is the most effective, least expensive treatment for pain, back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. So that's an inflammatory reaction when you have pain. That can put a stress on the immune system. Again, I don't know any research about this. I'm just thinking logically. So not just for pain, there's so many other benefits to chiropractic. So if you'd like to make an appointment to come see us in the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. We would love to be your doctors. Let's look at your nervous system. Let's look at your digestive system. Do you have acid reflux, heartburn, burping, gas, bloating? Many times we can adjust or actually pull the stomach down away from the diaphragm. And it's the number 2 reason we see patients. Number 1 is pain. Number 2 is digestive issues. And then let's talk about a dietary plan. Let's see what the best plan is for you. What supplements might work? Personally, I take Super Green Central Source, vitamin D, adrenal support, nitric oxide, B-complex, men's hormone support, omega-3 fatty acids, and it works. And the nice part is it's a whole lot cheaper, exponentially cheaper than even a fancy cup of coffee in the morning. And the long-term effects. I want to work till I die. I don't consider work. I consider work fun because I love sharing this knowledge with you and helping you get well and stay well. So if you're serious about wanting to get well and you'd like for me and my team of doctors to be your doctor, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. In the Atlanta area, Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb, we can get you an appointment this week. We always have appointments available in our offices for new patients. So drjoe.com. Normally the first visit is $940. Because you're you, we've dropped that down to $299. You're my listeners. That's an exam, x-rays, consultation, first treatment, going over the x-rays, and a complete nutrition evaluation. We could also do remote consultations if we need to. I know people listen all over the world. We can do remote consultations as well. So drjoe.com. I don't know anybody who's doing all that on the first visit at any price. So drjoe.com. X-rays alone are going to cost you more than that anywhere else. So we want to get to your cause. And then if you are a candidate for treatment, we'll discuss a treatment plan. What you decide to do with that information is totally up to you. 98% of our patients say, yeah, I want to do this. Of course I do. The other two probably moving out of town. So we want to do everything we can to get you well and keep you well. So drjoe.com is a great resource for that. So we're talking today about long COVID, and we're talking now about what to do about it. Study of COVID-19 illness severity in elderly in relation to vegetarian versus non-vegetarian diets. Statistically, non-vegetarian diets were 20 times, had a higher risk of 20 times the odds of suffering a critically severe course of COVID-19. 20 times higher than people that were vegetarian. Not even vegan, not even plant-based, just vegetarian. Thousands of frontline health workers across 6 countries found that those eating a plant-based diet had a 73% lower odds of suffering moderate to severe course of COVID-19. Like I said, just vegetarians, not even vegans. And of course, vegan plant-based is the best way to go. So it's not surprising because it lowers your risk of heart disease, diabetes, blood pressure, obesity. So plant-based diet does a lot of different things. Healthcare workers study enrolled a few thousand people, but Harvard researchers collected data of 600,000 participants, including plant-based diet scores based on what you're eating. Points were deducted if you ate meat and dairy and eggs and things like that. And of course, the scoring higher not only had a significant lower risk of suffering from severe COVID, but also significantly lower risk of getting infected in the first place. So once again, the plant-based diet comes to the rescue. And again, the research is pretty preliminary on what is long COVID. We don't really have a good way to test it. There's over 200 different symptoms with it. So I've yet to find anything that wouldn't benefit from going to a plant-based diet, any condition. We talked about seizures too, but seizures many times they talked about going to a ketogenic diet. But if you get them off things like aspartame, monosodium glutamate, those things can help reduce the seizures as well. So if you don't know what to eat, and I know this is overwhelming for a lot of you, you're thinking, you're insane, you're nuts, I'm going to continue eating my sausage and eggs and bacon and biscuits, and that's perfectly fine. We're a free country, you can decide what to do. But the research is clear. If there was a better way to do this, if there was a better way to treat back pain than chiropractic care as a primary treatment, I would send my patients there. If there was a better supplement on the market that I knew of than Super Greens and Essential Source as your entry level, I'd be taking it. So I'm a patient too. And if eating meatball sandwiches on white bread with provolone cheese was better than what I just taught you, you know what I'd have for lunch today? Exactly right. Meatball sandwich on provolone cheese with white bread. I want to do what's best for me. And the studies are clear, and we're talking today about long COVID, that the plant-based diet seems to help short-term and long-term because it helps reduce inflammation and helps build the immune system. So healthful plant-based diet can be a powerful tool to decrease the risk of COVID-19 and should be promoted as a public safety measure. And the side effects? Delayed aging, decreased disease, save a lot of money, boost your immune system. That's pretty much the side effects of it all. If real effort had gone into encouraging and incentivizing healthier diets and lifestyles, I think a lot of people's lives would have been saved across the board for all diseases. But that's not how our model works, and that's okay. We're a capitalist society. You can decide where to spend your dollars. But a plant-based diet, most effective, least expensive treatment for many health diseases. Chiropractic care, most effective, least expensive treatment for most back pain. So why not start with the basics? When it comes to back pain, come see us. Atlanta area, Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb, make an appointment to come see us. Let's try to get you well and keep you well, get to the cause of your problem, not just treat the symptoms. I'm not saying don't see your medical doctor. I'm not saying don't take your medication. Absolutely not. I want to co-manage your case with all your other doctors. My goal is this. I want to get you well enough so that hopefully we can get you off some of the other protocols that you're doing. That's my goal. And I love to co-manage cases, and most doctors love me co-managing with them because they're really good at what they do, but they're not really good at what I do. And I'm really good at what I do. I'm not good at what they do. And so we want to get to the cause of the problem. In many cases, people get better. and the blood pressure drops, and the cholesterol levels drop, and the diabetes is stable, and they're very happy with the results. So we want to check your nervous system, your digestive system, and your diet. That's a different protocol. How many of doctors are out there doing that? I don't know of any. So we want to make sure the nervous system is working. No pinched nerves. 90% of the nerves don't feel pain. Patients come in all the time and say, Dr. Joe, I heard you say that on the radio. 90% of the nerves don't feel pain? It's correct. You don't feel your blood pressure. It's controlled by nerves. You don't feel your spleen, your kidneys, your thyroid, your prostate. So my team of doctors, we check the nerves that feel pain, but we also look at the nerves that don't feel pain. Because if they're being pinched, we want to fix them too. And then my third concern with the spine is arthritis. If the bones are out of place, they wear out. How many people have arthritis? Raise your hands. If you have osteoarthritis, it's mechanical. Bones are out of place, rubbing up against each other. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. We'll talk about that when we talk about autoimmunity. But we want to get the diet straightened out. What to eat, what not to eat. You don't have to do it all today. When I give you my recommendations, start slow. Some people jump right in, and that's great. But if you want to start slow, let's talk about giving up one thing. Maybe artificial sweetener, maybe dairy, maybe meats, or cutting back on it at least. And let's see how you do. I had a patient come in the other day, former heroin addict, very obsessive-compulsive personality, very addictive personality. And he's overweight. He said, I'm going to do whatever you say. I said, okay. So I gave him a protocol, 21-day detox program that we put him on to lose weight. And then and he came in day 2. He goes, Doc, he says, I'm doing what you said. He says, I'm hungry. I said, give me 2 more days. I said, okay. Comes in 2 days later, how you doing? He goes, I feel great. And again, this is a man who's a drug addict, former drug addict. He goes, oh my God, I never realized I could feel this good. So folks, if you want to make an appointment, drjoe.com. We'd love to see you. Follow me on social media at Dr. Joe Esposito. If you're a podcast junkie, it's Dr. Joe for the health of it. Dr. Joe for the health of it. Folks, I can't thank you enough for tuning in today. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you very shortly. Again, I'm Dr. Joe Esposito, and see you soon.
All right. You've got some good ones.
I don't want good ones. I only want bad ones. All right, I'll answer the good ones.
Can chiropractic fix or help sleep apnea?
In many cases, yes, because in many cases, it's either the phrenic nerve, which comes out of your 4th cervical vertebrae, which controls your diaphragm, which makes you breathe. It could be the stomach pushed up against the diaphragm, preventing the diaphragm from dropping down. That's by far the most common. And we pull the stomach away from the diaphragm. Diaphragm can breathe again, you can breathe. Many times the ribs are locked up. The ribs are out of place and the spine is out of place and your ribs can't expand, so you're gasping for air. And then we got to look at your diet. Do you have enough food in your body to produce iron, to produce oxygen? So the answer is probably yes. And we'd love to see you. So drjoe.com, and let's fix it. Sleep apnea is very serious because you're not getting enough oxygen. Your brain needs that. So what else you got?
Now, this specifically is for somebody that's 5'6", about 110 pounds. So specifically for this person, but also for others, what is a good dosage for D3K2?
You can do 5 drops a day. You'd have to take 50 to 100,000 international units for multiple days and weeks to see any reaction. So I say, generally speaking, for adults, 5 drops is fine. The recommended dose is 400 international units a day. I'm recommending 5,000. The studies very much clearly show that 5,000 is a good, safe level. So,
and even at that, the study was between like 5 and 10,000 units.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so we're on the low end of what they did the study on, which was totally safe. So,
all right, a few more here. What do you know about, and do you have any advice on hair loss from COVID?
Yes, that's one of the 200 symptoms, actually. So it's an inflammatory reaction that we think, again, this is all we thinks. And the inflammation goes up into the brain and the inflammation around the skull, and it can cause inflammation around the hair roots. So hopefully if we can calm down the inflammation, the body starts to return to its normal function. No guarantees, no promises, but you asked me what I know about it, and that's what I know about it.
Here is a question from Michelle on, can a water filter be installed by yourself?
It depends what kind it is, okay? A whole house water filter, you could do it if you wanted to. I'm not that handy, okay? I wish I took after my father, who could fix anything. My father was deaf; he could fix stereos. I mean, just an incredible human being. My father. I didn't inherit that part. I got the smart genes here as far as this type of stuff goes. But a filter, a countertop filter, yes. But a whole house water filter isn't cheap. A couple of $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Absolutely worth it. If you could afford it, absolutely worth it. So.
Yes, and it requires a little bit. The whole house filters require not quite an intimate knowledge, but more knowledge than the average person would have on plumbing to install. As far as countertop, easy. Even some of the reverse osmosis underwater, under sink filter systems, you can install yourself.
Yeah, it's manageable too.
Yep.
Yeah. But, I don't want regular health. I want extreme health. And so that's my second book I wrote, Prescription for Extreme Health. And so that's why I was willing to make that investment. And I tell you, I've had it for years. And people come to my house and say, your water tastes funny. Tastes different. They don't say funny. It tastes different. And I said, it tastes like nothing. And they go, that's it. No chlorine, no fluorine, no chemicals. And most people love it. And in fact, one of the problems that happens is the chlorinated water is a bleach. And your clothes last longer. It's not, but the whites don't come out as white because you don't have the chlorine bleach in it. So it's kind of an interesting twist there. So what else you got?
This person's mom does not have Facebook. She'd love for her to watch. So some advice that I can give on...
That's a Garrett question.
Yeah. Some advice that I can give on people that may not have a social media account to watch. Probably the best platform for that would be our YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. You don't need an account to watch on YouTube. All you got to do is use the search bar within YouTube to look for Dr. Joe Esposito. Spell it all out. And you can find his account very easily. We go live on YouTube as well. It's the same exact show, and it archives on YouTube immediately after the show as well. So any show that you wanted your mom to see, that's probably the best. And if she's on the older side and maybe not as computer literate, you can also find that link for her and just send it straight to her. There's no need to sign into anything. That's my best advice there. Now, we are looking at hosting these shows directly on the website. I'm speaking more to the live portion. So we're looking at being able to host the live show on the site at drjoe.com. More on that later this year.
Yes. Stay tuned. Yes. That's a techie question, and Garrett's our techie, so there you go. Anything else?
That is pretty much it for today. Lots of, hey, Dr. Joe. Love you, Dr. Joe. So.
Hey guys, love you guys too. I appreciate you very, very much. Yeah, this is kind of a little off the beaten path on our topics, but it had to be done. There's just so many people with this question, and now we have something we can refer them to. All right, guys, I appreciate you. Follow me on all platforms. That's your homework, by the way. That's your cover charge. Follow me on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, at Dr. Joe Esposito, at Dr. Joe Esposito. But most important thing you do is make an appointment, drjoe.com, and I hope to see all of you